So we have here the Kovetz, Sugיות, Lekkutei, Sichos, Emuna, and Yediya. We're going to focus more on the first half, really only on the first half. The Shiur, Emuna, and Yediya. Now, just a disclaimer, the Shiur is going to be based mainly around the three Sichos here in the Kovetz, but we're going to try to say it in a way that even somebody who didn't learn the Sichos necessarily should still understand what we're talking about. So before the three Sichos, we have here the Psicha, which born here in the Psicha is the Kovetz, and the mitzvah Amuna from Derech Mitzisecha. And what basically comes out from Derech Mitzisecha is that there's two things. There's Emuna and Yediya, which are two totally different things, which don't have any connection to each other. Emuna is Makif, and it's Madregas which are higher than Seder Shtalshlos, higher than the Yediya of a person. And then there's Yediya, which is obviously more away from Pnimi. And that's in the Madregas, that's obviously in levels of within Seder Shtalshlos, which are shaykh to understand. Now, obviously, that's how it ends in Amuna Zalikos, and that's it. There's no real connection. There's two separate inyanim. Now, obviously, the Tachis, at least what the Rebbe is trying to do in these three Sichos, is to connect the two. That the Emuna should come into Yediya, should come into Kovetz, it shouldn't just be Makif. And it's obviously the Tachis of Chassidus Chabad. The problem is they can't really connect. And before we go into the answers, in order to understand the answers better, I just want to explain a shtickle better the question why they can't connect, why it's like a real stira for Emunah to come down to Kovetz Premium. So B'chlal, the whole Kovetz here, which really deals with the Shiur of Emunah and Yediya, is really like 10 steps down the line, meaning there's a whole Sugya in Chassidus. It speaks about all over Chassidus. What's Emunah and what's Yediya? Here we're really talking about the Shiur. So we're just going to give a quick, just in short, what's the Nekuda of Emunah and Yediya, and we'll see exactly why they can't come together and where we're trying to get to. So in general, there's a common mistake made that in English we say that Emunah is belief. We believe in Hashem. We believe in Eivish's existence, and the truth is also Goyim believe. Goyim also say they believe in God. On the dollar bill we have in God we trust. And in truth, the Emunah of a Yid isn't at all like the Emunah of a Goy. It's something totally different. There's a Sicha in Chelik Lamed Hey, Pashas Noach, where the Rebbe points this out, that the Emunah of a Goy and the Emunah of a Yid are mamish two zwei Welten. And the Emunah of a Goy could come down to Pnimius. What's the difference? The Rebbe explains that the Emunah of a Goy, this that he believes in Hashem, is neveya from Seichel. Is neveya from Akara Sichlis. We have a lot of times that, the dogma which is negeya to us, you have Bacham sitting in Zal, and somebody comes in and says that something happened. And right away, there's a machlekes breaks out if they don't believe the shmur or not. And what's the machlekes tell you? So one guy's going to say, I believe it. Why? It makes sense. It makes sense. So he believes it. He doesn't know everything. He doesn't have a real cut in everything that happened. He hears b'chlos to Maisa because it makes sense to him. So I believe in the story. And the other guy will say, no, I don't believe in it. Why? Because it doesn't make sense. It's a belief which is miyusid, which is neveya from common sense, from seichel. And al derech zeh, this that Goyim believe in the Eivishter is built off anacha sichlis. And it makes sense. It makes sense to believe in God. They were brought up that way, maybe, so they're really brainwashed as a kid. But it's not something too powerful. It's just all come from common sense, and therefore we believe, even though they don't have a full akara in what's going on. So we believe. A Yid's Emunah is something. A Yid's Emunah is something totally different. A Yid's Emunah comes from his neshama. The Eibishter put inside every single Yid of neshama, and from that comes the union of Emunah of a Yid. It has nothing to do with what he understands, nothing to do with how he feels. Aminim b'nei maminim. The Eibishter gave in the Maila Yid the musik of Emunah that there's a part of the Eibishter inside of him, and therefore he believes in the Eibishter because he's connected with it. Versteht sich that when man redt wegen a Chelik Lekam Al Mamish, so it's the Eibishter allein. It's Mamish the Inyan allein. The Inyan is b'chol ha'toikef. It's the Eibishter Mamish. And it's true. It's ba'etzem there. It's emes. It's not built off anything else. It's rein. Mashenkin by a guy, like we said before, and Agav, therefore Goyim don't have Asag and Seviv Kolamin, because obviously everything's only coming from Yediya, and obviously a person can understand the Seviv Kolamin. It's higher than Ishtalsh. Mashenkin a Yid could understand, could have an Emunah in Seviv Kolamin. And that's also why Goyim, for most shittis, are mitzvah on shittuf, because weiter, because Alpi Seichel, shittuf makes sense. They're still believing in Eibusha, but they believe in shittuf. Shaking by Yid, it comes from his neshama. You could call it almost like a chush hashishi. Your eyes see, your ears hear, your hands can touch. Your neshama sees elikus. Your neshama, in Atvat Tzavi, you have lashon name as layu chazi, whether you have two ways in Emunah, but your neshama sees and feels elikus. What's the problem? We need this Emunah to be part on a person. We said before, and if you have in the Sichos over here of Nitzavim, the first Sichos of Kovetz Nitzavim from Chelek Lamedal, the second Sichos Nitzavim. We need the same to be b'vchinas b'fich v'vavcha la'asoisoi. Should be choider the person entirely. And lashon of the Sichos Mishpatim over here, the second Sichos of the Kovetz, Chelek Tezayin, and Mchibel Yom Tachtin. Right, the Elin should go into the G'darim of the Tachtin. And you have Tav Shenun, lashon over there Kamayim and Mechasim. But basically, we want this Indian, which is be'etzem higher and rain, this rain thing, belief, this Emunah Yid has in the Eibusha to come down to Keiches Pnimim. What's the problem? A person is built from a nefesh. And the nefesh has koiches through which he's misyachis to other things. The main koyach our nefesh has, the most primistic koyach our nefesh has in a way where he's misyachis the things outside of him and takes it in, is koyach ha-seichel. To koyach ha-seichel, that's how our nefesh is misyachis with other things. Now seichel, the problem with seichel is already v'ich fashtei. In seichel there's already rules. Seichel is already magbel the Indian. In seichel everything has to make sense. If it doesn't make sense, it's not there. In Gashmis you can have two things which maybe don't go together. You could try to force them on one another, try to get them to touch each other. Two things, two opposites. If you have enough force, you can push it together. In Ruchnis, there's no such thing. When it comes to Seichel, other the Zach is dartin, other nisht. You can't, it's like saying you can't take a teretz. Yeah, you can't have a question, and you have an answer which doesn't answer the question. You're going to force the answer onto the question. Yeah, verstehst du? It's nicht shaykh. You can't force a teretz on a kasha when the teretz doesn't answer the question. You can't force it on if it doesn't answer the question. So it doesn't answer the question. It's a nicht dar. If it doesn't fit in the Gdarim of Seichel, if it doesn't fit in the way the Koyach HaSeichel is built, it's not there. And therefore, once Emunah, if we're going to take this Emunah and try to bring it down into Yediya, try to bring it down into the person, it's already not going to be the same thing. It's already going to lose its taikif. It's not going to be that Irein, Eibishter, which we had before. Because Seichel is going to take it in his kalim. It's going to have to make sense in his Gdar. So whatever doesn't make sense is simply not going to come in. And what's going to come in is only going to be a small portion of this blig v'lemuna which it has. Only whatever shaykh to come into Seichel. And therefore, Emunah kishal atzma is makif. Therefore, Emunah is makif. Because once Emunah comes down into Seichel, into Yediya, it's watered down. It's already not the same thing. Like we see, right? It's always brought in Chassidus about Aganev. That the Aganev davens to the Eibush to help him steal. Yeah. Why it's pshat and Emunah is makif. Now, not just that Emunah is makif. When Emunah is nisgale, sometimes somebody has a pesay soyos. When Emunah is nisgale, it's not mischasha with the Gdarim of Seichel. It runs it over. It bulldozes over the Gdarim of Seichel. You can't have both together. In the Sichos I said before, Noach, so the Rebbe also over there, it calls Emunah and Yediya, Re'iyah and Shmiya. So, Shal Zachfar, you saw something. You saw it, and it was very clear. You exactly saw what happened, you saw exactly what happened. Now someone comes telling you who didn't see it, he comes trying to give you Rayas and Echachis, why what you saw happened. It's not pshat that you don't have to come on to him because you saw what happened. You don't even want to hear him. You have no patience for it. You saw it. What comes to me with the rice, with the chachas, with chayas, I saw what happened. When you see something, so the chachas already after are not even smoking. The dive sisters, you run it over. If Emunah would be nizgal kameshu, it would run over the kechas maybe. Yeah, and therefore you have that. Sometimes Emunah nizgal about Yediya serious, but then it's a great avek. Because it's not choyda in the personal life of it's be'etzem makif. Agav, you see the same nekuda with seichel, with koyach haratzin. Sometimes the person really wants something, which it makes no sense, and he does it either way. When it's a mishuga al pi seichel, what do we say? He didn't do it with seichel. There was no seichel involved in what he did. It's another dogma where you see a koyach makif, when it's nisgale, it bulldozes over the koyach haprimi, as if it doesn't exist. So the sikkum, we have two inyanim. We have the musag of Emunah, which Emunah is the Eibishter Alein, and it's the tachlis, and that's the tachlis of the Eibishter, and the bleak wall of the Eibishter. That's really the primis of a Yid. And we need that to come into the Yid's Keichas Primim, but it can't. If it comes in the Keichas Primim, it's the Sheinish Emunah. And really, in the Sicha of Nitzavim, in the first Sicha of the Kovetz, Nitzavim again, Nitzavim Chelek Lamed Dalet, second Sicha Nitzavim, that's the Rebbe's question. In the beginning of the Sicha, the Rebbe puts the Rambam and the Rebbe, that the Rambam says Yediya is the Iker, and the Rebbe says Emunah is the Iker. In the end of the Sicha, which we'll speak back in a second, where the Rebbe changes the Rambam, and a halva vart is that the Rebbe also changes the Rebbe. If you look in the Sicha, you have it on page 14 in the Kovetz, page 177 in the Lekkutei Sichos, the paragraph in the middle of the page V'zeu. You'll see over there the Rebbe says that even that really the Rebbe holds that there's also Emunah and there's also Yediya, but there's two separate things. Don't mix them together; they can't mix together. And the Sicha Mishpatim, again Mishpatim Chelek Tazayin, the Rebbe brings over there the Shalah, which we'll get to later, and that's really the Pashto Pshat of Shalah. Yeah, is that Keli V'Anveyu or Keli V'Arei Memenu? When the Eibishter is Keli, when it's a minor Azach, and Seichel, then it's Ani V'Anveyu, Ani V'Hud V'Kum B'Yachad. So my Metzias, when it's the Keli V'Arei Memenu, it's a distant thing. This is the Pashto way that Emunah and Yediya can't connect. It's impossible. And therefore, we see the Yisod all over Chassidus, that there has to be both. You have to have the Maila of Primis, and you have to have the Maila of the Tekef of Emunah, that it can't go away, it can't change, right? We mentioned this earlier, but when something's built off Seichel, so it's not as strong. If you come and shlug him up, or there's a little Sveikas in the Seichel, if it's not in the Gdarim of Seichel as strong, so right, if the Gdarim of Seichel get weak, and suddenly this thing doesn't fit as much in the Gdarim of Seichel, so it's less shaykh to you. You're not going to trust it anymore. Mashenk and Emunah, it's vain, so the Zach. And therefore, we see, like in all the Sichos of Chukim and Mishpatim, you need both. But the Rebbe in these three Sichos is coming to somehow be mechaber them. And the Rebbe does it in three different ways. One way in the Sicha of Nitzavim, one way in the Sicha of Mishpatim, and then the last way, at least in this Kovetz, the Sicha of the Hadrin of the Rambam Tafshin Nun. And we're going to try to explain the beer of each Sicha, and we'll see the uniqueness of each beer, and what's the chesaron of each beer, and to really understand clearly how each Sicha is a totally different thing the Rebbe is trying to do. So the first beer we have, the Sicha Nitzavim, and like I said before, Rambam, Ravid, and the Rebbe explains that the Rambam holds the Iker is Yediya, the Ravid holds the Iker is Emunah. Then the Rebbe brings the famous Rambam of Bechira Chavshis. The Rambam gives a whole Chakir of Drisha that has to be that a Yid has Bechira. Then he asks the $1 million question, the Chayra, the Eibishter knows. The Eibishter knows what's going to happen. If the Eibishter knows, and when the Eibishter knows something, it has to happen, you're not choosing, so the Eibishter. And he's Mayich in the question until he comes to the answer, the Maskana, well, there's no answer. So we know the Eibishter is higher than Seichos, and Mela, it's Pseider. Comes the Ravid, and the Ravid asks, since when do you ask a question without wanting to give an answer? Who asks questions if there's no point in giving an answer? The whole point of a question is you can have an answer. And therefore the Ravid gives his answer. But the Ravid puts a valid point in the Rambam. You don't ask, there's no tachlis of a question if there's no answer. The whole tachlis of a question is that there should be an answer. Here's my from here. The Rebbe learns that the Fida Rambam, no. There is a tachlis in asking a question even though you're not going to get an answer. And that's where the chibur of Emunah and Yediya come in. The Rebbe basically says over here that even though Emunah and Yediya are two different inyanim which the chayra can't connect, you could do something to try to connect them. And in simple Veta, bridge the gap. You can bridge the gap between Emunah and Yediya. How? And the Rebbe says by being choker, just like the Rambam, by asking questions, by being choker in the madrigas which are be'etzim higher than your seichel, by asking questions and trying to understand in yonim, which are be'etzim higher than your seichel, until you come to the maskana, eventually you come to the maskana that you can't understand them. But that gufa, in a certain sense, bridges the gap between Yediya and Emunah. What's pshat? So Yediya obviously in Shleimus means that should be understood, yeah, saga. But the tachas here is that it should be poil and your keches premium. So through this that you think about in Yonim, which are be'etzim higher, even though that you're not going to be able to understand it, if I carry it, you're going to come to the maskana that's now understood. You can't understand such a thing. It's higher than you. But that gufa makes the Indian a little shaykh to you. That gufa makes the Indian more in your veld that it can have a shtickle hashpa on your keches premium. Vashetach is not chibur Emunah and Yediya. The Emunah is not coming down into Yediya. So I said before, bridge the gap. It bridges the gap a shtickle. We expand the shtickle, the koyach, the ability of what Yediya has to do. It's not just stuck in inyanim which I could understand. Yediya, the koyach ha-seichel, could think about mimizbeil in inyanim which are be'etzem higher than seichel. And even though you won't understand it, but that itself makes his inyanim a little less fremd, a little more shaykh to his metzias. That's the first beer. Agav, we're not here to try to be Masada, the whole Chassidus, but the Rebbe is mitzayin to it, and it's brought here in the Kovetz as a Yisafa. So I should mention it for a second. The Rebbe is mitzayin here to Hadron and Vav. You see in the Sicha of Nitzavim, Ha'ara 38, Rebbe is mitzayin to Hadron and Vav, and Hadron Lamed Hey. Hadron and Vav speaks about Yediya Sachir, Yediya Sashlila, Lamed Hey, Motzei V'enim, Motzei, similar in the Kuda, for understanding that the Eivish is not understood. Now, there's no time to go into it now. Maybe at the end there will be, but I doubt there will be. But whatever, it's interesting to be ma'ayin, whether it's the same nakuda or not. They look very similar. There is a shtickle of difference. L'chayda Memvav and Lamed Hey are talking about a din in Yediya Gufa. It's a little deeper over there, but again, if we'll have time, we'll get into it. But that's something to be ma'ayin in. The Sich of Nitzavim and Hadron Memvav. How similar are they? What are the similarities? The differences exactly. Stam derech hagav. Either way. So, the mile of this beer is simple. It's very practical. For all those people who are into practical chassidus, so it's a very practical eitzah how to be mechaber Emunah and Yediya. Yeah, think of the inyanim which you better can't understand. Try to add etvas have epas hashaychas in the inyanim, and that itself makes it a little more in your world. It's a little less friend. Versteht sich aber, yeah, when not chiber Emunah and Yediya, that's not chiber Emunah and Yediya. So that brings us to the next beer, the Sicha Mishpatim. Sicha Mishpatim. Right, the Rebbe starts off asking Komnei Shayas and Seder Parshiyas. Chayr looks like the Seder, the regular Seder Aveda, first Yisrael, Kabbalah Soil, right, Emunah, and then Mishpatim. Yeah, Mitzvah Lapi Seichel, Yediya. And then plötzlich in the middle of Mishpatim you have a Basa B'chol, which is a Chayik. At the end of Mishpatim you have Nasav Nishma, and the Rebbe asks a Shayla and a Shalah. Until the Rebbe gets to the Maskana, there has to be a Nekuda of Chibur Emunah and Yediya. In Lashon of the Sicha is Chibur Al Yimetachtin. And how does the Rebbe explain it? The Rebbe gives a very interesting beer. The Rebbe says that when a person understands the Inyanim and Alikus, which he could understand, until it becomes one with him, Lashon of the Sicha, you see on page 24 in the Kovetz, 249 in the Sicha, Mishpatim Aleph Chelek Tezayin, the top left side, von Vibalda sein Metzies ist geworden vereinzigt mit der Likus, wird sie nicht nisbatel, afilu von Madreges, zu welche sein Seichel ist nicht kenkli. When a person understands the Madreges and Likus, which he could understand, and he understands in a Zaman Eifen that wird vereinzigt mit der Sach, he's misacher with the Indian, becomes part of him, so then mitamol becomes a keli to the higher Madreges and Alikus. Yeah, it's almost like a magic trick. You understand the Madreges you couldn't understand, and mitamol you're shaykh to the Madreges which are higher. Well, what's pshat? Yeah, monavshach. Either you're seichel shaykh to the Indian or not. And even before you understood the Madreges and Alikus which you were shaykh to, we also knew that you were shaykh to that. And we knew that you're not shaykh to the Madreges which are higher than you. It's not a chiddush now they understand you bevet feinstig mit the madregas that you could have a shaykhs do, they could understand. We knew that before that shaykh. What's mit amal? Now mit amal shaykh to the higher madregas. So right over there, the Rebbe is mitzayin in Ara 59. The Rebbe is mitzayin. Yes, the Ara 59, about page 24. In the Kovetz 249 in the Sichos. Aderech Yiduah. It brings from the Maimon Krem Achuscha and Hemshech Samachalef. Shekelim da Atzilus. The Yosam Elikus Mamish. Yechelim Lekabel B'Seicham. Gili Yor Shebuchinas Blikvu Betzim. What's Pshat? Says in Samachalef, the Kelim of Atzilus. Gvul. Yeah, Atzilus is already Oilam. Kelim are Gvul. And we know that by Oidus and Kelim, the Oidus are exactly tuned, are exactly tzugapast to the Kli. The Keli can only withhold an or which is tzugapast to the Keli. Alpha Pichen says, Tafir Samachalef over there, that Farane Indian to this that you didn't do Torah mitzvahs. Farane Indian says Tesefes Oidus, you didn't amamshach Tesefes Oidus and Atzilus, and these Oidus are Blikvul Mamish, and somehow the Kelim are Makabel these Oidus. The Kelim are Gvul. Cheder the Or is Blikvul. The Cheder Keli can only be Makabel the Or, which is the Fiyarech B'Kli. So what's the beer? He says, Kelim the Atzilus the Yesam Elikus Mamish, because they're Elikus, even though they're Elikus are Gvul, Yecher Lekabel B'Seicham Gili Or Shebuchinas Blikvul B'Yetzim. What's Pshat? Manavshach. If you're Gvul, you can't be Makabel Blikvul. We just said it before. It's in a Keli. A Keli can only be Makabel whatever he's built for. So the mashal which is given to explain this, Bechlal, Chassidus, whenever we speak about Eretz and Kelim, and for this Nakuda, so we have Keiches HaNefesh. We'll take Keich HaTnuah. The ability of a person to move. So there's a Or, there's a Koyach, the ability we have to move, and then there's the Kli, which is the Yivarim. A person only has a certain amount of strength. A person can only lift up a certain amount of weight on an object. He can only walk a certain distance, or run a certain distance at a certain speed. If he wants to pick something up which is heavier, or he wants to run faster or farther, he has to exercise. He has to make his kelim more shaykh. He has to make his kelim more strong in order that they can hold the bigger of Keich HaTnuah. Aber on exercising, you're mugbal. And even when you exercise, you're always mugbal to whatever your keli could handle. Afal Pichen, we see that at certain times, a person could somehow go out of his akbalis and do something which B'derech Kla he can't do. Mamashal. B'shas HaSimcha. When a person has a chasna, he has the dugma which is in Yoni the Yem, is to the Bachrim. So when a person has a close chavas chasna or a relative, mitamol he can dance the entire night. And from zweiten Zeit, in B'shas HaSakana, a person can run, however fast, however far he has to go, B'shas HaSakana, mitamol is megal nai keiches. What's Pshat? If I would ask you the day before to dance an entire night, you would tell me I can't. This is not lefi my kelim. Mitam, you dance all night. If somebody would come to you the next day and pay you to dance, pay you to do that exact same thing you just did the night before, you would tell me I don't have such koyach. So what happened? How about a chasna did you have koyach to dance the whole night? So the answer is there was a gili of etzem hanefesh. Etzem hanefesh was nisgal. There was more which was nisgal. There was bligvul which was nisgal into the kelim. And somehow the kelim were able to withstand, to carry this Why? What's the asbara? The asbara is that the kelim are like kus mamish. The koiches of a person, your koich hatnuah, all these inyanim in the end of the day are a way to be megala the nefesh. Tafkidam is to be megala the nefesh. Or you could say it fakert, the nefesh has koiches in order to be nisgala. So if it comes a matziv, where for whatever reason the nefesh has to be nisgala more, extra, something which the koiches are not built into it, it's not built into their system, the koiches though, because their in is to be megala nefesh, the nefesh wants to be nisgala more, so they're going to kivyachol ride with it. They're going to carry a weight which is heavier than the regular ability for them to carry. Their aim is to be Megal Nefesh. A Nefesh wants to be in his Gala more. So the Koiches, even though Mitzad Atzmam they can't do it, but they'll ride with it. They won't break. They'll ride with it. They'll accept it. Because in the end of the day, that's their tafkid. I once heard a lashon from one of the mashpiyim that it's as if the kelim they have a back door. Which if Arab Legal comes in the back door, they let him stay there. So Lamayla we say that kelim, because they're likus mamish, kelim is dachal likus. Yeah, the gvul and bligvul is dachal only yashino in metzias, but the mahus kelim are dachal likus. Is the mele, even though they only have kelim for Arab Gvul, but if Arab Bligvul is in this gala, because in Yonam is to be Megal Elikus, so they're going to carry that weight even though it's Shalei L'Fiyarka. They're not going to shut down. They're not going to say no because that's their Indian. And that's the way that Ev is Mevar here, Pshat, the Chibur of Emuna and Yediya. When a person understands the Madregas and the Kus which you couldn't understand, not just in a way of understanding it, but in a way of Asevet Far'enzik with them, that becomes that Mahus, it becomes his Metzias. His Metzias is the Yediya Hashem which he has inside of him, these Madregas Velikus, which are Mugbal. So then, when there's Nisgala, a higher Madrega Velikus, Emuna comes in, the Kalim won't shut down. The Kalim are going to carry it, they're going to accept it. And like he brings in the other, I think Rabbi Afson said this in the Shiur Psicha, it's the on the last page of the Sicha, page 25 in the Kovetz, 250 in the Sicha, Ha'ara 64. Means the Piskum there of Mashab, as man sitzt bei sich in Cheder, man öffnet dem Lekkutei Torah, füllt man Atzmus Ein Sof. Yeah? You're learning with your Seichel. Your Seichel only understands the Likus HaGvul. Alpha Bichein, as they get learned the Lekkutei Torah, here later brings in the order, that's only by the Rabbeim, but only Efes Kotzei V'Shemetz B'nei Rishayach Tos, but when he learned the Lekkutei Torah, füllt man Atzmus Ein Sof. The Emunah came down into the Yediya. In English, the Emunah came and it permeated the Yediya. The Yediya became totally chadur with something shaloi la'erkoi, and it was chadur within his V'darim also. Like by the Chasna. Your Etzah and Nefesh was Nisgala. But who's dancing? The Koyach HaTanur. The Ivarim. The Ivarim themselves, they are carrying this weight which they can't carry. And versteht sich, the mile of this over the first beer is that you have a real chibur of Emunah and Yediya. You're not bridging the gap. The Emunah itself, hat gekommen reingegangen in the kelim of a person. A person now feels a chayes from his Emunah, filled with Atzmus Ein Sof. There was a chibur. Agav, before we speak about the chisaron of the beer, we go to the third beer. It's important to make note that there's really the difference between this beer and the first beer of Nitzavim are really opposites. In Nitzavim, the Nekude is das, was du verstehst. Prove versteh. Yeah, try to bridge the gap. Try to expand the koyach of your Yediya. Here, the Nekude is punkt verkehrt. This that you understand already is I've been burning their in biz, sevet a chelik from there. Biz, you become vereinzig mit the Metalikus, and then it'll be a keli to be mekabel hech. Yeah, two totally opposite zugangs. Especially in the practicality of the avodah of was montment from the yid. Now, what's the chisaron of this beer? The chisaron of this beer is mepashtus. The night after you danced a whole night by the chasna, you wake up next day, you're Charlie Horse. Because even then, it wasn't because your koiches, mitzad atzmam, had this koyach to dance the entire night. They accepted something shalai lefiyarkum, and they rode with it. But it wasn't mitzad gidram him. It wasn't mitzad them. Either they're weak the next day. Yeah, in the end of the day, the kelim of Atzilus are mugbal. They didn't become bligvul. They carried maybe bligvul, but they themselves didn't become bligvul. They stayed the same. Yeah, the Emunah and Yediya, if you could say, stayed two separate in Yonim. They touched each other. They came in contact. But that the Emunah should come in the Gdarim of Seichel, that didn't happen. Yeah, we were before the order of a filth benatzmus. It's verstehst Atzmus. Verstehst was to learn. It's filth to Atzmus. It becomes permeated with the Tnuah of Emunah. But the Tachlis is that within the Gdarim of Yediya itself, there should be Yediya and Lekus, was a Hechem of Seir Shtalshlus. And Stam, you can look in the Sichos Mishpat, I'm not going to point out it now, but you can look, there's never the Lashon, as versteht man Hecher von dem Stashus, the whole Lashon is, it's Choyder, it's a filled sich the Nekuda, but the Lashon that nehmt durch, but the Hasaga Mamash you also don't see in the Lashon of the Sichos. And that brings us to Tav Shenun. And Tav Shenun, the Rebbe is trying to be Machaber Muni Yediya in a way that should be within the Gdorim of the Mensch itself. And weiter. We have to see how that works. And then the Chayat Friya, that's the Chayat in Shaykh, Stamish to see inside, the Rebbe is stressing this in here, where you see it's already where you see like the Chayat Mishpatim here is not enough. The Bir and Mishpatim is not enough. On page 31 of the Kovetz, in Tav Shenun, it's the Sichel Chayesara, Chazar Macheshvan, it's the Hadam al Rambam. It's printed in Sefer Sichos Tav Shenun Chelek Aleph, page 125. You see the beginning of Zayin on the left side. It's Arbir Ech Yitachen Shebegidrei Ha'olam Yumshach V'Yachda Gidrei Likus Shalamayla Megidrei Ha'olam Adagil Asmas Yisbarach. Within the Gedarim of Welt, within the Seichel Alein, Shvinim Shach Sachein Dugma Ladavar. Already speaking Koyches HaNefesh. So we spoke before. You can have a Ratzin, which is somebody who does something totally Meshuggah, he's Bavatal Seichel. Yeah, totally wasn't mischashi with the seichel. You could have when etzim is nisgala and the seichel rides with it, and the seichel takes on a higher load. Then you can have another way where koach makiv is payal on seichel, and that actually brings in the ha'ara in the Hadam of Tav Shenun, ha'ara 33. That also is payal on seichel, and the dugma we bring in chassidus for it is, which is always brought, is sheichad. It says, Ki ha-shoichad ya'aveh einei chacham, v'yisalav divei tzaddik. First, if the shaila, if Reuben's really right, but the Dayan's only passing like Shimon because he gave him money, how's he a tzaddik? He's a shakr. How can you say he's a tzaddik when he's mekabel sheichad? So the beer is, it's not pshat that sheichad makes you always passing like that guy. It's not pshat that sheichad's telling you that even though he's right, makes you passing like me because I gave you money. Sheichad's pshat, it says, that when you give the Dayan sheichad, he starts to look at the case differently. And he's going to somehow see that the person who gave him sheichad is right mitzad his own seichel. He's actually going to be convinced that he was right. And if you come to the next day, and even if you take away the sheichad, you ask him, why do you pass this and this guy? The other guy is giving gerech. He's going to tell you, what do you mean? And he's going to be masber you. Why this person was right. So Koyach HaRatzon over here was pointed that the Seichel Alein Zolmein in a gewisse Inyan. And that's what we have to try to do over here, that the Emunah should come into the Gedarim of Yediya itself. So how does that work? So the Rebbe kind of says this is also B'Ktsara, but before we, just to understand the answer better, let's understand what's the issue over here. We explained before, Emunah's makif, and if it comes to Yediya, the Kalim of the Seichel are going to mess up, they're going to water down the whole musik of Emunah. But let's understand why really could Yediya not understand L'mayla Mishtalshdus? Not who says, but why really why would our Seichel really mess up and water down this whole Nekudah of Emunah? What's wrong? What's wrong with our Koyach HaSeichel? What's the issue? Who says maybe Seichel could not understand that? That's what's saying stuff. So the Rebbe here says it in short, the Lashon for the Yediya who mitzias la'atzmai. But bepashtus. Yid versteht der Blick will von der Rebishter. The Nekudah of the Blick will, the Emeskat der Rebishter is mechayiv that his mitzias should not exist. That his yeshua should not exist. Seichel is doch in wie the Nefesh versteht. Seichel is doch I understand. So if I were to understand how the Eibusher is Hecher von Welt, it would mean that I also understand that I don't exist. And that's not possible. For a person to understand that he doesn't exist doesn't make sense. As we see by a dream, a person can dream about whatever it is, and they can dream that alle schlechte Sachen in der Welt treffen sich zusammen. But when it comes to Misa, the person can't dream, he wakes up. Because a person can't picture such a thing. It's a stilim ne'ubei. For you to understand means that you exist. But for you to understand that you don't exist, no, so you don't understand because you're not here. No, so because we're Yeshus. And the Eivish is doch Bligvul. And the Eivish is doch the only Metzias. So our Seichel can't understand our Insaf of Bligvul. Because it's Mavatal, our whole Seichel is Mavatal, our whole Metzias. So as Mendel, the Rebbe says, what if we could change that? What if we could really make that our seichel is in tune in Ganzen with this nekuda of the Emunah of the Eibishter, of this that the Eibishter is the only emes and metzias in the world? How do we do that? By being megale that that's the true metzias of our seichel. By being megale that the metzias of our seichel is amiti simatze. Lashon of the Sicha in page 32, left side on the bottom, 126 in Sefer Sichos. Yeah, you see the last words of the paragraph over there. If we could be megala that the mohus and the pnimis of the koach haseichel of a person, and really his whole metzius, is not this yeshus which is soiser to the elikush l'maylam yaylemis, but ha gufa, that is his metzius, amitis himatze, the eibishter alei. So then his Yediya is already not a stira to Emunah. The Emunah and Yediya are perfectly in sync. They're perfectly made for one another. Das is ein mahus. And that's the beer of Tafshinun. Yeah, the Rebbe asks Kol Minei Shaylis and the Rambam, very strong the Kasicha, Kol Minei Shaylis, Kol Minei Mechasim, and the whole last halacha. And that's basically what the Rebbe says. That the Sfaranki Malar is there. And that's the Welt in Mitziyusay, and it's also in the beginning of Rambam, Leida Shesha Matzirishay, and then Faran Kamayel Mechasim, which is Shenecha Madrega. That we're Megala, how the Pnimis Mitziyus of Welt is not the Mitziyus from the Mensch. Fakert. Loinim Tzu. I is Faran Mitziyus, Mamitis Himatze. His whole Mitziyus is only Amitis Himatze. If his whole Mitziyus is Amitis Himatze, so Zicher, the Emunah of the Eibishter, Kum Tanai Pnimis, that does time Mitziyus. You're Megala, that's his Mitziyus. And versteht sich, this is the Tachas Chibur Emunah and Yediya. It's already not two things which really have to connect, which are still to one another. So it stays. You really can't connect them with any Yediya. Yediya of a mugwadik person, of something which is gvul, you can't connect it with Emunah. If you're Megala, that he's really big gvul, that he's really the same Metzias, so the Zach Yetarai. You're going to ask l'chayra, so what's the difference between this? And we say earlier that Emunah is nizgal and just bulldozes over Seichos, bevatal l'gdarim of the Metzias. So the answer is farket. It's not bitul ha-metzias. You'll be megal shleimus ha-metzias. The Rebbe says this in page 33, in the Kovetz 127, in Sefer Sichos, last paragraph of the page. Please move and see him chaysim say vayarim bitul metzias ha'elam ela adrav tachas ha-shleimus ha-metzias ha'elam. Tachas ha-bitul she'ein metzias la'atzmei klal. V'yachem zeh shleimus ha-metzias kemen she'metzius ha'ein erak ha-mitis himatzi. That explains how it fits in the words like Kamayim Mechasim, the halacha the Rambam. That's the third beer, and come over. That's the shleimus beer, and really farket. When you're megala, the mohus is amiti simatze farket for the person to understand the muslig of Yeshus. That's abgefragt. That's his metzias. Now we can't understand Yeshus really. And I can't really what it says in the Sicha. I just want to add one more point, and we'll end off with this. We said earlier that there's really two chesernis in Seichel. First of all, it's only going to take whatever it could take, but also when something's been used on Seichel, so it doesn't have the same takeif as Emunah has, because it's built on a cheshbon. So even though we're going to say that our Seichel now is not a stira, Tachas Hashem, because we also feel that we're a Metzias of the Eibishter, but in the end of the day, the Chayre Seichel is Magba. So, the Rebbe, I didn't get into it, but the Rebbe in Tafshinun is Mechalig, makes a small edel chiluk between how it is in Welt and how it is by Yidden, in Sif Tes. Of the Sicha, you see how the Rebbe does it. The Rebbe speaks about a shtickle and also in Ha'ara, is Magdia nicely in Ha'ara 40, page 34 in the Kovetz, 128 in the Sicha. The Rebbe makes a small difference, but the Chayr with that small difference also, it explains this Nekuda a little better. By a Yid, when we're Megale, this, that he's Be'etzem, Amitis Himatze, means being Megale the Etzem Hashem. Being Megale, this that he's Chelik, Kagayim HaMamish, Yisov, Kuchibich Kulachar, Lashon the Sicha over there. And when the etzem hanefesh is nisgale, that's the mohus of the seichel. There's a lashon in Rabbi Afson showed this to me, Mama showed before the shir. In the Sichos Bamidbar and Chelek Ches, and it speaks over there about one of the in the middle of the Sichos. It speaks over there about Midbar, the first Sichos and Chelek Ches. Speaks about different ways that Ratzin is Pearl, that Keiches Makif from Keiches Pearl and Keiches Pnimim. And the third way, the highest way over there, I'll show you inside, as the Nekudas Hayadus nem durch sein ganze Metzias und sie wird sein ganze Metzies, und wenn Mele wird also, als der Seichel mit seiner Atzme ist mechayiv und versteht behesse mit der Nekuda. That's the pshat here. Because it's pnimis is chelik come mal mamish. When that eating is nisgale and is chayda durch and that's going to be by Bias Mashiach. So the seichel is also gonna think the same way. That's his mahus, that's his lotzin, that's his seichel, that's his midas, that's his maisa. So versteht sich, that seichel is gonna think the exact same thing. That's his mitzvah. His mitzvah is that he's bleak wool, he's a mitzvah matzah. That is Farah, or the Eibishter. If it's just time to explain it again, this is already michutz leguf hasichas. Time to explain this last point. We see this Inyan by Mesiras Nefesh. We know Mesiras Nefesh is not pshat a cheshbon sichli that you make a cheshbon. I love the Eibishter so much, therefore I can't chas v'shalom serve over this other. Mesiras Nefesh is pshat. There's no two options. Yeah, so maybe somebody would tell you that either chas v'shalom I'm going to kill you or become an animal. So it's not you're going to tell him, kill me because I'd rather die as a person than live as an animal. No, you don't have two options here, right? You tell him, I'm sorry, I can't become an animal. I'm a person, I'm supposed to from here. There's no two options, yeah? It's not the sprach, I love the Eibishter. I'm even one with the Eibishter. That's who I am. That's my mitzvah. There's no two options over here. And that's the sprach, which only Etzem Neshama speaks. Not the Seichel. Seichel is versteht. The Eibishter is good. Ratzin, I want the Eibishter. Midas, I have feelings for the Eibishter. Maisa, I do what the Eibishter wants. The sprach of Sekenish Zayin Anders, there's no other mitzvah. It's only Etzem Nefesh. Afa Pichein. We see that if somebody asks somebody to do a Maisa nega the Eibishter, to bow down chas v'shalom, to avoid Azar, okay, Chum says Nefesh in this gala. Fesach the Shar L'cheira. If the Etzem is the Eivishter and you're a Jew and that can't change, so what's the art there if he bows down to the idol? Yeah, if he bows down in Maisa, if somebody goes against the Eivishter, he bows down to the idols. Is Etzem still connected? Yeah, if he has feelings, if he has midas, regesh towards Episem Avodah Zarah, so is Etzem's also connected? Yeah, there's a Seichel, there's a Ratzin. Because the Etzem is that you're a Yid, so who cares what you do? Who cares about all the Keichas HaKluim? The Yid is always connected. So why is mitamol the seichel and koyach ha'maisa? Whenever chas v'shalom people are asking people to shmadzach, whatever they're asking them to do, mitamol that's speaking that same sprach kenished. That's pshat that the etzem is this gala and becomes the most of the koyach ha'kluim. It's not pshat that the koyach ha'seichel says that I can't connect the Eivishter because there's a guy in the back. There's an etzem nefesh who doesn't let me. Severt, the etzem nefesh comes down into the mitzvahs of the koyach ha'kluim. That was stuck already there. Chagav. The Nekuda last beer is that fakert the Gdorim of Welt become Amitis Imotze. Why is Alikus Choyd in the Gdorim of Welt? Because the Gdorim of Welt is Alikus. That's where Megal Mashiach comes. That the Gdorim of Welt is Amitis Imotze, is the Eibishter Alei. Just to end off, a couple of Nekudas to Machshava I mentioned before, to be Ma'ayin, Sticham Nitzavim, Hadrim and Vav. I think it is a shtickle different than Yesh La'ayin. Also another thing, V'ata Tetzaveh. We know that the V'ata Tetzaveh speaks about also this Nekuda of Chiv Emunah Yediya. Interesting to see how these sichos here relate there, and also l'chayra, at least the way I understood all these stuff shenun. It comes out l'chayra at the end of the maimer about the tzaveh, the Rebbe takes things even a step higher, right? The etzem of the tzir the keiches hagluim, not just that the etzem is the mahus of the keiches hagluim. Aber yesh la'ayin could be equivalent of shenun like that also. I understand off v'ashkach pratis. It's parshas Vayera. The Rebbe always brings the ma'aser of Rebbe Rashab. Tzemach Tzedek. Nee, dat is de man bij de Eibishter. Wants to see the Eibishter, ja. De Emunah zal afkomen in Yediya. Ich bin sicher sein. Da kann man ja mal chasim. Mal ist der erste Shem kann man ja mal chasim. Das Gas der Rebbe, teke für mich am Lambisch.